Time now for a big India Today exclusive from the world of Indian cricket. It's set to get much tougher for the Board of Cricket Control in India, the BCCI, because now they're fearing that there could be another legal tangle for them, and this time directly related to corruption right under its nose in state bodies that it has failed to check and perhaps even ignored and encouraged. What India Today has learned is that there's an independent auditor report into the funds given to state associations till March 2015, and this audit report, which was under the BCCI itself, shows that there was massive misuse of funds by state bodies. An independent functionary of the BCCI has told India Today that the Deloitte reports on the functioning of some associations are just damning. If Lodha committee gets these and they place them before the Supreme Court, there is every likelihood that a new investigation could be launched into the affairs of the BCCI and the state associations. Remember, the Supreme Court order of 21st October has given the Lodha panel and an independent auditor all powers over its funds, disbursement of funds and even contracts. So what is it that we have learned through our sources that this report contains? It contains some certain damning accusations. For example, Goa. In Goa, the association used money given to them for 18 cars that they used for personal use of the managing committee members. They even claimed petrol and maintenance from state funds. In Hyderabad, there has been a blatant misuse of funds where the association members bought gold coins and even gave jewelry to their wives under a tender process. On top of that, there are loans and payments that there is no proper record of. Assam was given a loan of 60 crore rupees by the BCCI, and there's absolutely no record where that money has gone as far as the audits are concerned. In Kerala, money has been spent on buying land which cannot be used for cricket functions at all. And all of this combined leads to a big question mark, not just on the state associations, the way the funds have been used, but also just what the BCCI was doing all this while. I have senior journalist Pradeep Magazine, who's been tracking BCCI for many decades, our consulting editor Boria Majumdar, and also my colleague Rasesh Mandani, who tracks the BCCI, joining us on the show. Let me first go across to Rasesh Mandani. Rasesh, what a damning scenario this will be for the BCCI if this report was to be made public. Curiously, the BCCI has not made this report public, but if the Lodha panel asks for it now, they've absolutely had it, isn't it?
Yes, and they would have to provide, that's a legal requirement, Shivani. You're right. I mean, what's the primary argument of the BCCI been? Effectively, they've been telling the courts, we will reform, but we'll do it at our own pace. We now know what happens if the board is left to reform at its own pace, and that's been the case over the years. These are, some quite telling and alarming, findings of the BCCI's internal audit itself. Remember, this has been brought about by the then BCCI President Shashank Manohar, and some of the findings of some of these state associations are quite alarming. I mean, for some of the associations to be using, cars, etc., for personal use is another story. But I mean, these are multiple crore allegations of scams as well on some of these associations across the country. 5 or 6 associations starting from J&K in North, Goa in West, Kerala in South. Some of these associations, interestingly, don't even have had any valuations done for the land that they've purchased. Cash loans been taken up by some of the members. This is quite impractical in today's day and age. And if indeed these are sought by the Supreme Court, the BCCI will have to provide. And the court has been gradually sort of tightening the screws on the BCCI, giving them some breathing space. But even if we see a few more hearings in this case, the BCCI's task is getting more and more difficult with these revelations.
Absolutely. Pradeep, the most important point is that the BCCI has been resisting the reforms that the Supreme Court is leading. Lodha panel, interestingly, had said in its report in January that there needs to be a policy of how BCCI gives funds to the state bodies, because it clearly isn't transparent. The BCCI claims it is. But after this kind of a report, which it has sat on for at least a year, we know, for at least a year, clearly the argument that Rasesh was mentioning, that we are doing it, we are a well-functioning body, look what we have done for cricket, look how much money we have made for our players, etc., none of that stands.
Well, each time the board resists, it gets worse for them. You know how it started. It started with these
IPL spot fixing.
They said, no, nothing, Mayappan is not involved.
They gave everyone a clean sheet.
They gave a clean sheet, the court intervened, and this thing was exposed. Now, instead of having accepted the Lodha Commission reports, they are delaying it. They are saying, no, the states are not agreeing. Now, what has happened? The Supreme Court has appointed an
independent auditor.
Now, what will the auditor do? Obviously, it will go through all these reports. And once it goes through all these reports, these are frauds which are criminal frauds.
These are blatant corruption charges.
Corruption charges. So, I think even now, if the board should just give it up and tell Lodha Commission, okay, fine, we accept the recommendations and you appoint an auditor, and whoever has done the fraud, by saying no, we are not going to do it, they actually are telling the world that are they complicit in all this?
Exactly. The question is, what was the BCCI as the central body doing? First of all, let me also point out that it is no longer just about their funds and how they disperse under Societies Act.
It's not a private body.
It's not a private body. The court has mandated it disperses public function. This is public money. So this is as serious as any corruption scandal.
It's because you and I watch on TV, we go to the ground. That's how they make this money. Because the game is so popular and they can't spend this money like this.
Absolutely. But do you think in the history of BCCI, Pradeep, such grave charges of corruption, we've seen it individually for some bodies. The Delhi District Association is going through that, but even that didn't happen because the BCCI acted on them from the first word go. It's because of people associated with the body have been filing cases, have been raising the issue. BCCI only acted very later, isn't it, when the when Mudgal was appointed to foresee the matches that were to be held, etc., and it put the DCA on a notice. But in the history of BCCI, have you ever encountered such kind of blatant corruption coming out, or the BCCI trying to hide it?
Look, one has heard about it, especially in the last few years when the money they were earning got multiplied and multiplied with IPL. One knows how state bodies function. One knows that the money which they get is not audited the way it should be audited, the way it is spent, we know. But to have proof of this, and I'm sure this still would be a tip of the iceberg. I'm sure when the Lodha panel appointed independent auditors go into details of how they spend money, how do states spend the money, how do they justify their expenditures, worse than what you are alleging might come out.
Right. Boria Majumdar is also joining us now. Boria, first of all, just put it in perspective for our viewers. When was this internal audit done under Shashank Manohar? And what was the intention of this audit? And if the intention was to set its house in order, why has that not happened so far?
I was hearing the conversation, for the last couple of minutes, Shivani, between you and Pradeep, and both of you are right. I mean, this is the tip of the iceberg. It was done late last year when Shashank wanted to bring in transparency and accountability in the functioning of the BCCI and appointed Deloitte. And the report came in around April, and that's when Shashank left the BCCI and went to the ICC. The report is in the custody of Amarchand Mangaldas. I mean, let's for once first give our viewers bare facts that what we are breaking on India Today, what we've been talking about all day, is exact reality. There's one copy of this report. It is with Amarchand Mangaldas, the BCCI's legal advisors. It's not one report. There are multiple reports, one each, on the functioning of each state association done by Deloitte, which is the BCCI's appointed firm. Why did he do it? Of course, to bring in transparency, accountability. Where I think it should have been done more is he should have made it public. Because this is BCCI, a public body disbursing public functions, or at least should have mentioned to the world at large when he was leaving the board and going to the ICC. It was done. But the fact of the matter is, what are there? I mean, look at the findings. Since then, Ajay and Anurag have been telling us every day, we are transparent, we are accountable, look at us, we have put all expenditure over 25 lakhs on our website, etc., etc. Now, each of these state associations, Goa giving 18 cars, Hyderabad giving gold jewelry, Jammu and Kashmir giving money, Kerala giving land, Odisha, writing the accounts with your pen and paper. It's stupid, right? At one level, it is ridiculous, it is unacceptable, it is poor, it's unethical, it's corrupt. You were saying it is a scam or is looking like a scam. I am saying it is a scam. I am saying it's cricket's 2G, because the level of monies we are talking about is at least to the tune of few hundred crores, if not more. 60 crores Assam, 30 crores Kerala, 100 crores there. And now take all the other associations. You are talking about a corruption scam which will be to the tune of few hundred crores, Shivani.
That's right. But you know what's interesting, Boria, is that all of these reforms, Pradeep, as we were talking, you know, they all make sense. They made sense to everyone. Maybe you could argue against one or two of them, like the selector panel and all of that. But the BCCI has basically been, resisting these reforms, claiming they're already a well-functional, transparent body. They have rejected one state, one vote. They suspend certain bodies, which factions that they don't like, you know, and then they give money to others, the factions that they like. So this is clearly not just about state bodies. This is about BCCI also using money to buy allegiances. Will it be too unfair to say that they're using this money to buy votes, to buy allegiances, to keep people quiet, you know, to scratch people's back and have their backs being scratched in return?
You're absolutely right. What do you mean wrong? What do you mean it's too far-fetched? You're spot on. In fact, let me draw on something that you said in the 2 o'clock show that you and I did, that constitution is one thing, financial irregularity is completely other. Now let me just put one fact before both of you, that the BCCI got an undertaking from Hyderabad Cricket Association on 20th of May, and I will give you the date also. On 20th of May, a 14-15 point undertaking saying we will not do X, all of these things, what I pointed out. They have gotten a similar undertaking from Goa Cricket Association that we will not indulge in corrupt practices. And then you let that be. Then you let the same people continue with it. So you allow people to commit crimes, you allow people to commit perjury, you allow people to swindle money, you allow people to be corrupt, and then say, okay, give me another undertaking, you will not do any more, and you continue in your office. How transparent is a body, I mean, which claims to be transparent, allowing this to happen? And you know, it's blatant outright corruption. And I'm hoping the Lodha committee is listening, and with that independent auditor, all of this is brought to light.
Pradeep, very quickly, do you see this as the death knell of BCCI's defense? And even BCCI, the way it's run, already that is changing. But with corruption getting involved in written terms, there's absolutely no argument.
I see Lodha panel should take serious note of this. Obviously, the auditor will get all these documents, and they will do their own independent
audit as
well. And I'm sure the auditors whom the Lodha panel will appoint will be people of great credibility and integrity. I see board having no defense. There can't be defense for these kind of a things.
Absolutely. Unfortunately for the BCCI, this is not looking good for them. In this fight for reforms, in this fight for save their post, this could well prove to be the last straw on the camel's back, where there will be no argument. Remember, if this goes to Supreme Court, you can only imagine what the Supreme Court will do. The same Supreme Court which has said that this is public money. You are not in charge of it on your own, and how you spend this money is public's concern. Pradeep Magazine, Boria Majumdar and Rasesh Bandani, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll keep getting you the latest. Of course, this report is now key for BCCI's future.